Hello, Mrs. Hassler here. I'm just going to finish up the notes on page 311 with you. So we need to define what it means to factor a quadratic. So to factor a quadratic, we are going to write the product. That means we're multiplying things together of the two lines that give the quadratic when multiplied. Okay? In other words, number 2 says factor x squared plus 12x plus 35. What that means is, to factor means that I want to rewrite this so that I have two linear functions being multiplied together. I'm going to break this down and work backwards. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give the steps and show my work in each of these boxes to help you factor. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to write the two linear groups. Okay, and that's what I did over here when I made my two parenthesis groups. Okay, and when we do that, we're going to split x squared into x and x. In other words, we're going to take this x squared term, and that gets broken up into x and x for each linear term. Right? In order to get x squared, we would have to multiply x times x. So it should make sense that we're breaking x squared up into x and x. Okay. The second step, number 2, is to find factors of c, that constant at the end. So that's what I'm going to do in my work here. My c value in this case, my constant, is 35. So I need to come up with all the factors of 35. And lucky for us, there are just a couple. There's 1 times 35, and there's 5 times 7. So I make a list of all the factors that multiply to 35. And then the third thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the sum of all factor pairs and choose the sum that add to B. Okay? And so in other words, if I have a B term that is 12, I need to figure out what my factors add up to. 1 plus 35 is 36. And then 5 plus 7 equals 12. That means that I want to use the factors of 5 and 7 as part of my lines. Okay? And so the last thing that I'm going to do, step number 4, is I'm going to use my proper signs and factors to finish the linear equations. So we found 5 and 7, Yesterday we talked about the fact that since the constant is positive, my two signs here have to be the same. And because the middle term is positive, my two signs have to both be positive, so that the two numbers will add up to a positive B term. So plus 5 goes in one group and plus 7 goes in the other group. And then I can always check my answer by multiplying things out. X times x gives me x squared. X times 7 gives me 7x. 5 times x gives me 5x. And 5 times 7 gives me 35. So when I clean it up, I get x squared plus 12x plus 35. So the big idea is that I'm finding factors of my constant. I'm finding factors of my constant that are going to add up to my middle term, my G value. So I'll talk you through number 3, and then you can try 4 and 5. So again, my first step is to rewrite my two linear groups and split the x squared up into x and x. Okay, so now I want to find factors of my constant. I want to find factors of positive 24. Well, that would be 1 times 24. And if I add up 1 and 24, that gives me 25. That does not match my B value of 10, so those are not going to be the right factors. 2 times 12 gives me 24. Well, 2 plus 12 gives me 14. That does not match my B value. Let's see, 3 times 8 gives me 24. Well, 3 plus 8 is 11. So that does not match my B term. 4 times 6. Hey, if I add up 4 and 6, that gives me 10, and that matches my B value. So my factors must be x plus 4 and x plus 6. And then I can always check that my outside product, 6x, plus my inside product, 4x, give me that middle term of 10x. Okay? I'll go ahead and run through 4 since the signs look a little different. So same story. The first thing I'm going to do is split this up into two linear groups, where I split x squared up into x and x. And I need to find factors of my constant. So factors of 6. Now, these factors need to add up to negative 5. So since they multiply to a positive number, but add up to a negative sum, my two numbers have to be negative. I need a negative times a negative. So let's see, if I have negative 1 times negative 6, well, negative 1 plus negative 6 gives me negative 7. So that's not going to work. Let's try negative 2 times negative 3. Negative 2 plus negative 3, oh, that gives me negative 5. That means that this set of factors is going to work. I'm going to have x minus 2, x minus 3. Again, I needed them both to be negative so that when I multiply them together, I get a plus 6. When I do the outside product, I get a negative 3x. An inside product gives me a negative 2x, and that adds that negative 5x in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and pause for you to try number 5, and then I will unpause so that you can check your answer. Alright, so the first thing we needed to do was split our two linear factors up into x and x. Since my constant has a negative, one sign should be positive and one sign should be negative. Now my middle term is positive, which means my larger number should be positive. So my larger factor needs to go here with the plus, and the smaller factor needs to go with the minus. Okay? So factors of negative 18. Let's see. I could have negative 1 times 18. Again, my smaller number is the negative 1. So when I add these together, I get a positive result. That gives me 17. That won't work. Negative 2 times 9. Okay, when I add those together, I get positive 7, which is what I wanted. So x minus 2, x plus 9. And you can always multiply them together to check your work.